Hey friend, welcome to Grounded, the Vestibular Podcast. I'm Dr. Madison Oak, aka the Vertigo Doctor. I am the vestibular physical therapist who is here to help you with all things dizziness, imbalance, and vertigo. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of vestibular disorders. Come with me as we dive headfirst into a journey to discover the mysteries of the brain, the inner ear, and the balance mechanisms that keep us grounded. Whether you've been managing dizziness for one day or 25 years, we're going to get real about what it takes to manage dizziness, handle the anxiety cycle, and thrive, not just survive, with your vestibular disorder. First, I want to remind you that this is never medical advice. Remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and may not be the best fit for you and your personal situation. It shall not be construed as medical advice. The information and education provided here is not intended or implied to supplement or replace professional medical treatment, advice, and or diagnosis. Always check with your own physician, medical professionals, and healthcare team before trying or implementing any information found here. Hello and welcome back to Grounded. This week I have a little bit of different audio setup, so hopefully my podcast editor can do some editing. Anyway, I want to give you this week's win of the week, which is by Simran. Simran says, I almost don't want to say this out loud. You get the point. I'm whispering, ha. I had my first week without classic migraine attacks. I don't remember the last time that happened. It rained and stormed 3 days ago. I had some pressure in my head, but stayed calm and did breathing. I'm so thankful for the week. I have to appreciate it, and you guys truly get it. I think Nurtec is doing its job. I know that Nurtec is doing its job, but I also know, and we're going to talk about this today, that managing migraine, classic migraine, painful migraine, vestibular migraine, whatever it is, requires more than medication. I know that it does because this is what I do for work. And so I know for a fact that Simran has been advocating for herself, getting the right things at the doctor's office, doing the right things at home, managing things better from a comprehensive perspective. Remember, we need to think about the entire treatment pie, and that's what she is doing. So congratulations to you. I am so excited. So with that being said, let's get into the episode all about managing migraine. We're just going to do 10 things that honestly everyone should know about managing migraine, but that most people don't know. So people with migraine, people who are caregivers, people who are curious about migraine or have friends or family living with migraine. This is for all of you. And it is Migraine and Headache Awareness Week. This is the last week of Migraine and Headache Awareness Week. I do want to let you know, or month, not week. I do want to let you know that we are having a flash sale June 28th and 29th. I've said it on the podcast a couple times. The code is MHAM20. MHAM20 for 20% off your first vestibular group fit subscription cycle. It's going to be the biggest sale for a couple of months. So definitely, if you've been thinking about joining us, this is the time to do so. It's just going to be 2 days. Do not miss out. It's coming up this weekend. So if you have questions about that, please let me know. All right. We're talking about something close to home, how to manage migraine. And I think I have like 100,000 episodes about this, but these are all of your guys' favorites, honestly. So we have to talk about it more. The first thing that everyone should know about migraine, not just people with migraine, but everyone in the world should know, is that migraine is not a headache. It's not a headache. Migraine is a neurological disorder that presents with symptoms like headache, but it often and also involves the entire body. So if you have vestibular migraine, you probably know this, but a lot of people will tell me, well, I have this weird dizziness and I have like XYZ other symptoms, but I don't have headaches, so I can't possibly have migraine. And the answer is that's not true. Visual disturbances, nausea, dizziness, brain fog, sensory sensitivity, and dismissing it as just a headache minimizes the experience and also delays proper treatment and delays things. And I'm trying to say delaying the proper treatment of migraine makes migraine worse, period. It's called medication underuse headache. It's basically not treating migraine adequately and appropriately, and therefore not getting better. It's probably going to be getting worse. So if you're like waiting on taking medications or waiting to make an appointment, just make the appointment, take the medication, do the things. And we're gonna talk about other things you can do. It's one of my points is that it's not just about medication, but we'll get there in a second. Migraine is a whole body disorder. It affects your entire nervous system, not just your brain, but it does live in your brain 24/7. It's a chronic disorder, meaning you live with it 24/7, 365, no matter what. It is not just the acute migraines. So something to know about migraine is that you have migraine, no S, and then when you have an attack, you have a migraine attack, not migraine. So saying things like, yeah, I'm having migraines this week, it would be grammatically incorrect. And it also adds to the stigma because it represents it like I have a cold, right? Which is an acute disorder. I have the flu right now. It's an acute issue. Whereas migraine is similar to epilepsy or asthma, where you have it all the time, but it can go into remission. You can go time without having so many symptoms, but you always live with the disorder. You're always managing migraine, even when you're in remission. Next, early intervention matters. It truly is everything here. So with migraine, timing matters. The earlier you treat an attack, the more likely you are to stop it in its tracks. So people will tell me, I have this acute medication and I don't know when to take it. The answer to that question obviously is between you and your doctor. But at the end of the day, usually doctors recommend taking it the earliest possible time that you notice symptoms. And this is where tracking and things come into play. So tracking different symptoms, tracking, knowing, hey, if I have neck pain on Tuesday, usually by Thursday, I have a full-blown attack. Take it when you get the neck pain. It is such a common prodrome symptom. I think I have an episode on prodrome. If I don't, I will definitely do one. Whether you are using an acute med like a triptan or a CGRP or a non-medical approach like supplements, electrolytes, and let's say Truvaga, treat early. Don't wait to see if it gets worse. Trust yourself, honestly, because the more attacks that you have, the more attacks you are ultimately going to have, which is so frustrating. And someone in group the other day was like, I'm just sitting here waiting for my brain to quote fix itself. But at the end of the day, your brain is now in this overly sensitized position that it doesn't really want to be in. And it's trying to get you out of it, but it's likely going to go through the entirety of the migraine sequence. And we do ultimately want to try and help ourselves by aborting the attack. Which brings me to my third point, which is prevention is not just about medication. And frankly, neither is acute treatment. Treatment is not just about medication. We need the whole shebang, the whole treatment pie. So preventative medicine absolutely matters, right? Preventative medicine should actually look like sleep, movement, stress, triggers, low inflammatory lifestyle, all of these things. But when we think about preventative medicine, most people are like Topamax, amitriptyline, whatever, nortriptyline, whatever your preventative is, right? It is not just the medications because they don't even work for everyone, right? Most, if not all people with migraine are sensitive to medication. If you're sitting here being like, none of those worked for me, I'm really sensitive to medication. Being sensitive to medication is a hallmark of having migraine, frankly. Like it should be I mean, this is a joke, but it should be in the diagnostic criteria. Like sensitive to medication, you probably have migraine. It is that common. I would put it in there. So yes, sometimes a prescription can help, but other times you're either too sensitive to them, you need a microdose of them, or you just are, for whatever reason, personally don't want to take them. The other things work. And of course, this is what we practice in vestibular group fit. Always, always, always is what are the things that ultimately we need to do overall in order to help, right? Because even if you are taking a preventative medication, efficacy for preventative medication is 50%, 50%. That means you feel 50% better in frequency and or intensity of attacks. And 50% is not 90%. It's not 100%. And ultimately the goal is to get you back to a place where you're feeling good. You're feeling kind of like yourself again. And all of these things at once, those things add up to help you. And that's kind of like what the win that Simran was talking about at the very beginning, where she's like, yeah, the Nurtec is working. And a lot of people don't give themselves credit for this, but it's the Nurtec or the Amavig or the Topamax or the whatever, plus all the things you are doing. Because if it was as simple as I'm just going to take this medication, be fine, honestly, migraine would not be as debilitating and frustrating as it is. It is a whole body, whole lifestyle condition. All right. And this brings me to number 4, which is triggers are real, but they are not the cause of your migraine disorder. The cause of your migraine disorder or anyone's migraine disorder is that you or that person are genetically predisposed to migraine, period. That is the answer for the cause. Now, triggers can be anything: weather changes, skipped meals, hormones, living in a moldy environment, getting the flu or a cold. Anything really could be a trigger. And people who are more sensitive, like those who have MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome, those people may be more sensitive to different triggers and new things. But again, it's still not the cause. So the goal here, and why I'm telling you this, why this matters, is because your goal is not to avoid everything forever. A lot of people are like, well, these 10 things are my triggers, and so I just avoid them. And now I'm like adding this 11th thing and this 12th thing. And the list keeps going up and up and up and on and on and on. The goal is to build more resilience in your nervous system. We do this through nervous system regulation and so many other things. But the goal is to build you a bigger bucket. And if you're like, what is she talking about? A bucket? I mean literally a bucket. If you imagine yourself as a bucket, that is basically the size or the amount of stuff you can take before your brain is like, nope, migraine attack. So the more stuff that you can fill in your bucket, the bigger your bucket is, right? If you imagine like a pint glass and a 5-gallon construction bucket, if you are the size of a 5-gallon construction bucket instead of a pint glass, you ultimately are going to be far better off from a migraine perspective than the person who is pint glass sized. Now, how do you actually do this? You're like, I'm dizzy all the time. How am I supposed to make any change? Now, sometimes medication can help create space for that change, but ultimately you need to find the group of things that help you to feel better. Usually, that is some combination of moving your body again, even though I know that moving when you feel dizzy is not the best experience and not the thing people think to do first, but it is so essential. And I had a patient say to me the other day, I finally did what you said after literally a year of me being like, you have to exercise. I finally did what you said. I finally started exercising, and you're right, it helps so much. Like, I know that it takes time and it takes everyone like their own journey and their own course of life to get there, and that's totally and completely fine. But at the end of the day, it ends up somewhere between movement, mindset, and by that I mean like nervous system regulation, breath work, meditation, how you create a relationship with your symptoms, having hope, all of those things, getting support and having community and people, both providers, people in your life, and either whether it's on Facebook or whatever, that get it, and then education. And by education, I don't just mean like listening to this podcast and knowing what migraine is. Yes, that's a very important first step, but educating yourself on the bucket theory, on different triggers, on how to manage weather problems, on how to do X, Y, and Z. All of those things are important. And of course, we obviously cover every single one of those in Vestibular Group Fit, but finding out about them, no matter who you are, where you are, any of those things is going to be absolutely essential. So no matter how you find out about them, whether it is through me or something else, which is, I guess, bad for business for me to say, but I'm sure you could find the information elsewhere. No matter how you go about it, it is absolutely essential. So remember, triggers are real, but they are not the cause of your migraine. And your goal is to build more resilience in your nervous system. Next is that nutrition plays a bigger role than you think. This is number 5. Food can be medicine for sure, but for some people, they are really sensitive to certain things. And this is not for me to either go or not go on the Heal Your Headache diet. That is not what this conversation is about. I definitely have my opinions about the Heal Your Headache diet, and it's definitely, I know, not for everyone. But at the end of the day, the things that are going to ultimately help support your migraine disorder in nutrition across the board is going to be eating in an anti-inflammatory way, meaning fewer processed foods, if and when you can, making sure you are hydrated and having electrolytes usually on a regular basis, and balancing your blood sugar consistently. Please do not eat naked carbs. That means if you're going to have either crackers or an apple, put it with some sort of protein or fat situation. So if you're having crackers, you're having it with cheese for a snack. If you're having an apple, you're putting it with peanut butter or beef jerky stick or whatever, not eating naked carbs. It is so essential not to spike your blood sugar because then it's going to drop. And that is one of the most inflammatory things that we can do across the board. And our body is not able to fight inflammation if our blood sugar is not regulated. So first you have to regulate your blood sugar and everything kind of comes after that. So it's really, really important. Yeah, getting 30-ish grams of protein at each meal. Obviously everyone's different and their goals are different, but approximately that, and then shooting for 10 per snack. Then remember, this is not about restriction and taking things out. And usually, especially if you're like, well, it's definitely chocolate or definitely this. Sure, some people are sensitive to those foods. I 100% believe in that. But I'd also like to caveat that a lot of times we get cravings as prodrome symptoms. And so people will be like, well, every time I eat chocolate, then I get an attack. But most of the time, it's like they craved chocolate. They had a piece of chocolate and then they got an attack, but they were already in that cycle. And so having a piece of chocolate plus then eating or taking your acute medication is going to be more helpful at the long run. All right, on to number 6. Sleep is migraine medicine. Poor sleep, and honestly, sometimes too much sleep, but mostly poor sleep, is one of the most common and often potent migraine triggers because the migraine brain loves to be boring. So I always say to patients and clients, try to be as boring as humanly possible so that the rest of your life can be fun. And what I mean by that is have a boring rhythm, a boring routine. I go to get in bed around 8:30 or 9 and I get up at 5. I go to bed at 10, I get up at 6:30 or 7, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter so long as your sleep usually between 12 and 2. And then like those hours that you're asleep for at least. And then it is the same, even on Friday, even on Saturday, even on a Tuesday. It needs to be consistent. It needs to be the same. And someone said they didn't believe me. And I was like, just try it for a couple of weeks or at least like 6 weeks. And she did. And she was like, I have been sleeping better than I ever have. So it really does work. And having a sleep routine and having sleep hygiene really does work. And it really does matter. No screens in bed. No screens 2 hours before bed. You can take your magnesium glycinate before bed. That helps. And then if you are feeling like you wake up not rested, if you're waking up multiple times in the middle of the night, or if you're waking up and you're just like, I'm already having an attack in the morning, these are the 3 things that I usually attribute those to. And usually between one of these 3 things, it is one of them. Sleep apnea. So that's the first thing. And so you can get a sleep study or sleep exam from your doctor for that. The second one is imbalanced blood sugar. So for whatever reason, your blood sugar is like dropping in the middle of the night or right before you wake up. Now, part of that is considered normal, but also eating like a high protein, high fat snack before bed, like cottage cheese or something like that, can be super helpful. And then the last one is going to be perimenopause. And everyone's like, well, I'm not okay, so people are either like, that's definitely me, or like, I'm not in perimenopause. If you're waking up with any sort of hot flashes or things like that, it usually is peri, and HRT is amazing and so helpful. It's also very safe, and the WHI study from the early 2000s is very wrong. So please talk to someone who specializes in this. But anywhere after the age of 35 is definitely possible for you to be in perimenopause. So talking to your doctor about that. All right. 7, there is a study that I reference all the time that basically goes to show what the most common migraine triggers or like bucket fillers are. And the number one consistently across the board is stress. Now, stress is not only like I feel stressed out. It is physiological stress, it is emotional stress, it is any kind of stress on your body. Now, we want to put some positive type of stress on our body regularly, like exercise, for example, but we want to avoid being overly stressed out about things we cannot control. Now, yes, life stressors come up, right? Like people pass away, or there's big parties we have to throw, or there's just things to be stressed out about in life. Work happens, family stuff happens, whatever. But at the end of the day, trying to take off things from our plate that don't matter so much is absolutely essential and so helpful. We can only juggle so many things at once, right? And most of us are juggling way too much and also not prioritizing ourselves. We have an entire podcast that Dr. Jenna and I did that's all about prioritizing ourselves, which again, absolutely essential, cannot live without it. You must prioritize yourself. And I do not mean like I got a manicure once a week or whatever. I mean, like, are you exercising? How are you eating? Are you hydrated? Things like so taking care of yourself from the most basic manner, but also doing things that bring you joy. Then daily breath work and or meditation, somatic tracking, gentle yoga, tai chi, journaling, therapy, somatic therapy. There are so many things. You don't have to be stress-free. You just need to have a way that helps your body process stress. For me, I have to go for a walk. I have to do something outside. I need to sit and like just lay. My college roommate, sophomore year, well, I mean, we lived together all of college, but sophomore year, I just found her one day just laying on the couch. And I was like, don't you have stuff to do? Like, I think it was like midterms or finals. And I looked at her and I was like, don't you have stuff to do? Like, there's a million and one things that I need to be doing right now. And like, I know that's probably true for you. We weren't the same major, but like, it's finals or everyone has stuff to do. And she was like, sometimes you just need to lay. Your body just needs to like allow you to lay. And I thought she was crazy. I was like, no way. I'm going back to doing whatever I was doing. And then like, probably, I don't know, maybe sometime in grad school or after I graduated, I can't remember. I thought back to that time and I was like, she is so right. And I have started to sometimes just lay, even if I haven't like, quote, done enough yet. It is amazing. It teaches the people around you that you're allowed to do that. Like my friends and family are like, oh, you're allowed to do that. And I'm like, yeah, you're allowed to do that. And so like they do it too now. And everyone's like, I feel so much better when sometimes I just like sit and rest and not tell I have to do anything. All right. Number 8, let's talk about how medications absolutely can help, but also non-medication tools matter. And we talked a little bit about meds in number 2. So let's talk about the other things because a truly holistic approach to migraine is required for everyone with migraine. So first of all, I mean, the entire podcast, all of Vestibular Group Fit, my entire Instagram feed, I get a lot of comments that are like, okay, we have migraine, but like, what do we do about it? All my free content, all my paid content, it is all about this. So let's kind of break it down here. First thing is supplements. There are some that across the board people should be taking with migraine. The ones with the most research behind them are going to be magnesium, B2 or riboflavin, and CoQ10. And then there's like ginger, turmeric, creatine, other things like that that can also be helpful. Neuromodulation devices like Cephaly, GammaCore, Truvaga, etc. I think both Cephaly and Truvaga I have a discount code for. For Cephaly, it is Vertigo Doc, VERTIGODOC, all caps. And then for Truvaga, I want to say if you're buying the plus version, which is my preferred version, so I'll just tell you that one, the code is OAKPLUS, Oak Plus, all caps. Next is acupuncture. I've seen this be really helpful, not for actually treating the migraine itself, but for helping to reduce stress can be great. Physical therapy can be awesome. Sometimes VRT, trigger point work, things like that. Anything that helps you feel relaxed. Massage, try to stay away from your neck, at least at first. Educating yourself on what this disorder is, what it means for you, all of those different things. All of these things matter. I am serious. So making sure that you are taking a holistic approach, not just like holistic. I feel like people hear the word holistic and they think like yoga and burning sage a lot of the time. That's not what I mean. I mean like comprehensive approach to migraine. You will feel so much better. All right, number 9, we are almost done here, friends, is comorbid conditions matter. Comorbid conditions just mean other conditions that you have as well as migraine. So you might have, a you may have you may more likely have, how do I say that? You may be more likely to have anxiety and depression. This is very commonly associated with POTS or dysautonomia, IBS related things, because again, your gut, I don't know if I said this already, but your gut health matters endlessly. I can't even stress this. Your gut health matters so much. So definitely thinking about that. If you have MCAS or mast cell activation syndrome, which I don't talk a ton about, but is definitely a thing, or histamine intolerance, or you maybe are just like, quote, a poor detoxer, any of those things could be comorbid with migraine. And so now you're managing not only migraine or vestibular migraine, but also another disorder. So these are just things to consider, and making sure that you have a team who understands all of the things going on. It might not just be just migraine. So treating the whole picture can create big breakthroughs, right? Like if you have MCAS, which is a big trigger for your migraine, treating the MCAS could be something that helps the migraine rather than just looking at it from like the quote, just migraine perspective type of a thing. And then 10, last but not least, healing is possible. It is so possible to get so much better, even if it's not linear. And if you take one thing from this episode, let it be this, that this gets better. I know people who haven't left their house in 10 to 15 years who are driving RVs to go camping. I know people who don't like to go more than like 10 or 15 minutes from their house who have flown to Ireland for weeks on end just for fun with their family. I know people who do literally everything, you guys, with a vestibular disorder, from daily symptoms, disabling attacks, disabling symptoms, to being very manageable or even into remission. So it takes curiosity, it takes patience, it takes a lot of hope, and it takes a whole person approach. So if your doctor is like telling you that either you're making something up, or this doesn't get better, or you just have to live like this, or it's just anxiety, it simply is not. And this does get better. So please remember that. Take that with you this June and throughout the rest of your life, honestly. This gets better. And I am here absolutely positively to help you get there. It is my job. I take it very, very seriously. It is why we in group, myself and Coach Dr. Jenna, as well as Coach Kelsey, who moderates the chat room, answer 100% of questions all day, every day, in order for you to get the best access to care available and to get the right resources that you will actually help. Like if you have a question and you're like, I can't figure this out, or I don't know where to turn or who to ask or who might know the answer to this question, I promise you, Dr. Jenna and I know the answer to this question. I promise you we do. And if you don't, and if we don't know the answer, we will find it for you. So you don't have to Google and scroll and get into like a Google rabbit hole of doom. This gets better. I absolutely promise you. You just need the right tools and resources. So when you are ready, join us in Vestibular Group Fit. Use code MHAM20, MHAM20 at checkout for 20% off. Remember, it cannot be retroactively applied. So if you use the code, please make sure you use it at checkout. You have to click the button at the top of the page that says have a coupon code ? Click here. Input it there. It's not able to be done retroactively. I love you. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on Facebook. If you are a member in group, in my DMs, I will try and do my best, but most of the stuff I can't answer. I love you. Happy June. Happy MHAM. And I will see you next week. Bye.